I'm Father Sinclair Ube. I'm a priest of the Diocese of Beaumont in Texas. I've been a priest now for 35 years. I am the pastor of St. Francis in Orange, Texas. I'm the head of the Permanent Diaconate Formation Program, as well as the Diocesan Director for Stella Maris, which is the Catholic ministry to the people of the sea. So we're here in Newton, New Jersey today in order to join together in order to make some presentations to Brother Marinus on behalf of the maritime community, both the Maritime Administration as well as the Norwegian Convoy Foundation. Brother Marinus was a U.S. merchant mariner, served during the Second World War as well as during the Korean conflict, and he was outstanding in both of those. Captain LaRue actually began his maritime career with Pennsylvania Nautical School. And his very first ship that he was on was the Francis E. Powell. And for me, that becomes really important because the Francis E. Powell was regularly a visitor to my hometown of Port Arthur. She was owned by Atlantic Refining, and so she loaded in Port Arthur and brought diesel, gasoline, whatever, to the East Coast and then came back again. He was on that vessel from June or so of 1934 until December of 1934, and I know that he's visited Port Arthur at least 3 times. And so that was very interesting, but he continued his maritime career, and when the war broke out, the Second World War broke out, at that point he had become a mate and was sailing for Moore McCormick Lines and was on the Marmac Mar sailing in PQ-13, the convoy from Iceland to Murmansk. In that convoy there were 19 merchant ships and 6 of them were lost during that time. But then he continues throughout the war, then sails between the war, and then all of a sudden he gets called and is given the Meredith Victory. She's in the reserve fleet in the James River in Virginia. They crew up the vessel, sail through the Panama Canal, load, and then become part of MacArthur's Incheon landing, continues to do shuttling of military supplies from Japan to Korea, and then gets caught up in the almost 200-ship convoy of relief ships that take both the 120,000 or so Allied forces out of Huguenot, as well as the 90 to 98,000 Korean refugees who came out. He alone on the Meredith Victory carrying out 14,000 refugees. But he went from being a shipmaster who had this great heroic action, who he could have written his ticket for the rest of the time, whatever he wanted to do, but he went from being the master of a ship to on a ship in this monastery, the equivalent of basically the saloon messman or the wiper on board. So he went from the master to really the most humblest service of answering the door, working at the gift shop, doing those types of things, and also dedicating himself to a complete life of prayer that melds these two things together and then challenges us as Catholic Christians as to both being in this world and doing great things in the world, while at the same time having a whole profound and a deep spiritual life that led them here in the monastery, that participated in prayer, and it wasn't becoming a priest or becoming the abbot or anything like that, but rather to just live in community and of prayer and of service here at the monastery. And reaching out to the Maritime Administration, they were kind enough to get behind it and assist me in getting the medals to be rewarded to him posthumously. Now, when we reached out to the Norwegian Convoy Cup Foundation, they were also excited about recognizing the work that he did, not only during World War II, but also during the Korean time. So we gathered together here today to celebrate that with the monks here at St. Paul's Abbey, as well as other friends and Bishop Sweeney. So it's to sort of elevate this. We've had a really important period of time with the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops endorsing this cause, and now being able to sort of build on that by having this presentation to recognize the importance of Brother Marinus and also Captain Leonard LaRue. I'm Father Sinclair Ube, a priest of the Diocese of Beaumont in Texas, and I want to welcome you to this very special event of presentations of medals in regards to Captain Leonard LaRue and Brother Marinus. It's important to take note that actually this will be the 20th anniversary of his passing in October. And it's been a real privilege for me for the last few years to work with Robert Lunny and Bishop Saratelli and now Bishop Sweeney and others who are motivating and moving forth of this cause. We really are happy to be here at St. Paul's Abbey, where Brother Mariner spent so many years of his life, and I'd like to turn now to Father Samuel Kim, who is the abbot here at the Abbey, to welcome us.
My name is Father Samuel Dongkwon Kim, actually from Korea, South Korea. I came here in 2003 and become a superior, prior of this community. Our community is pretty big. It's around 430 acres, and we have many buildings. So around 10 monks live here. So we live together, and we use both English and Korean. Sometimes Korean liturgy, sometimes English liturgy. When I came here in 2000, actually I went to Pittsburgh to study my graduate work. And in 2000, during the summer vacation, I came here to visit, our brothers, because St. Paul's Abbey is the same congregation of our, congregation with the Korean monastery in Korea. So I came here and I saw, Brother Marinus. Just I passed by his room. He opened his door. Just I remember. It's my, first time to see him. But after that, when in 2003, I came here, he already passed away. Yes, when I was a child, I heard, the story of my father. My father told me he came from, North Korea, Hungnam Harbor. So the Hungnam education, he came from that place to Geoje or Busan. I can remember, but I don't know. He got on his boat or military boat, but anyway, he came from that place. So I came here. God sent me here to take care of his monastery and his grave and the cemetery. Normally, I'm a cemetery caretaker. Yes. Yes, it's very impressive, and I felt, I too, involved with this, kind of his canonization more deeply, and also I feel very, thankful, because through his heroic, work, and Father Sinclair and Bishop Sweeney and everyone today, join here, the kind of celebration, the event. Thank you very much for coming here and for your good work. I'm the prior, because this monastery is not yet Abbey. So anyway, I welcome you, and I hope, our brother Marinus will be saint through God's grace. And also, I keep praying for him and for your good work. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you.
One of the motivations for having this event today was I reached out to Admiral Busby and also Dr. Shashi Kumar from the United States Maritime Administration to see if we could gather the medals that Brother Mariner's Captain Leonard LaRue gained. And at this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Shashi Kumar of the United States Maritime Administration to please come forward to present those special medals.
As Father Sinclair mentioned, I'm Dr. Kumar, representing the U.S. Maritime Administration. The U.S. Maritime Administration is honored to participate in today's proceedings and present St. Paul's Abbey with the Ship of Miracles display. It's a display case in memory and honor of Captain LaRue and the crew of the SS Meredith Victory.
Thank you very much.
In December 1950, Captain LaRue and his crew rescued over 14,000 North Korean refugees fleeing from the rapidly approaching Chinese and Korean forces in a small merchant ship owned by the US government, a ship designed to carry just 12 passengers. These 14,000 people who had crammed onto the SS Meredith Victory had walked for days in the bone-chilling December cold and snow to reach Hungnam. There were old men and women, young mothers with children in their arms, babies in their arms, and on their backs. And every able-bodied member of the family was carrying all of their earthly possessions on their heads and in ox-drawn carts. Their long journey to Hungnam became even more terrifying as they frequently had to evade deadly gunfire from enemies. Once on the beach, the refugees desperately flocked aboard the first ship they could reach among the 193 ships that were in the harbor that day. Those on the Meredith Victory, with no idea as to where the Americans were taking them, endured 3 long days and nights with no food, no water, no sanitation facilities, no interpreters, and not even any room to sit down or turn around. Those on the deck of the ship faced the harsh North Korean temperatures and howling winds. In stifling contrast, those who were in the compartments below deck, or the cargo hold as we call them, they had zero ventilation and no access to fresh air. The ship had no protection against the enemy. No anti-aircraft guns, no radar detectors, while sailing in what has been described as the heaviest minefield in the history of naval warfare. In addition, the ship was carrying a small supply of jet fuel. The only weapon on board was a pistol, issued to the captain, Captain LaRue, as standard equipment for freighter captains. 5 babies were born during the voyage without a doctor. The miraculous journey, the voyage, came to a safe ending on Christmas Day on a small island 50 miles below the southern tip of South Korea, without the loss of a single life. The rest is history. In 1954, after the war, Captain LaRue came here to St. Paul's Abbey in Newton, New Jersey, to live out the rest of his life as a Benedictine monk. He committed his days to the tradition of prayer and work and was given the religious name Brother Marinus. When asked about the voyage, Brother Marinus said, I think often of that voyage. I think of how such a small vessel was able to hold so many persons and surmount endless perils without harm to a single soul. The clear, unmistakable message comes to me that on that Christmas tide, in the bleak and bitter waters of the shores of Korea, God's own hand was at the helm of my ship. This presentation from MARAD, Maritime Administration, represents the medals received by the captain and his crew. There is the Merchant Marine Distinguished Service Medal, which is awarded to any seaman in the U.S. Merchant Marine who, on or after September 3, 1939, distinguished himself or herself during the war by outstanding conduct or service in the line of duty. Not more than one such medal shall be issued to any one seaman. For each subsequent instance sufficient to justify the award, additional insignia will be awarded and worn with the medal. Then there is the Gallant Ship Citation Ribbon. This ribbon is awarded to officers and seamen who served on a ship which at the time of service was cited for gallantry by the Maritime Administration. The bronze plaque is awarded to the ship itself. And lastly, there is the Korean Service Medal. This is awarded for service in the American Merchant Marine during the Korean conflict in waters adjacent to Korea between June 30, 1950 and September 30, 1953. Just a few comments about the ship itself. She was built in San Francisco in 1945. She came under federal custody in 1950 when she joined the James River Reserve Fleet. On the 21st of July, 1950, she departed the James River Fleet under bareboat charter to a company known as the Moore McCormick Lines. On 30th of June, 1952, she returned back to join the Olympia Reserve Fleet, also part of the National Defense Reserve Fleet. On the 22nd of August 1966, she departed the Olympia Reserve Fleet and was delivered to the American President Lines for duty with what we now call the Military Sealift Command in Southeast Asia. On 30th of January 1970, she came back to San Francisco Bay Area into the reserve operating status. In October 1993, after her illustrious service to the nation, she was recycled. And last but not least, on a personal note, I would say that there are global events taking place today which are very significant reminders of what happened in 1950. Let's hope there will be many more Captain LaRue's and similar individuals to help us. May not be by ship, but by other means. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar. Some of the details that you had there were even enlightening to me. I find that there is a certain irony here that it was the Chinese that were invading Hungnam, but when it came time to scrapping the Meredith Victory, she went back to China to be scrapped at that point. At this time, I'd like to ask that Captain Drew Demacia come forward to present the Norwegian Convoy Foundation Medal. A point that doesn't get picked up very much is that Captain LaRue was actually part of PQ-13, which sailed in March of 1942. Of the 19 ships in that convoy, 6 of them were lost on their run from Iceland to Murmansk. And interesting enough, and Phil Lacavera in his book, The Mariner and the Monk, portrays it very well, drawing from the armed guards' diaries or logs that they kept on the Meredith Victory, that the hand of God seemed to be with them because in some ships were so heavily attacked that the Meredith Victory seemed to be able to sort of sail through that and go to Murmansk and then eventually return back to PQ-13. So at this time, we've asked Captain Drew Demacia, who is the president of the American Marine Veterans, to present this special award to this Abbey of St. Paul, and ask Father Kim to please come forward to receive it.
At this time, I would like to state in regards to my position with the American Merchant Marine Veterans, we work very closely with the Convoy Cup Foundation, which is an organization headquartered in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And as our passions unfold in honoring our veterans and honoring people that have served and served well with God, it is amazing as we unfold these stories that NATO nations, whether it's Canada, Norway, Russia, I've worked with Russia very long now, 2 or 3 years, in regards to the Murmansk run and ones that made the run to Arctic, Archangel and Murmansk, and it is absolutely amazing to unfold these stories. So, with no further ado, the Convoy Cup has allowed me to be here with your incredible invitation, if I may. Dear brethren and Brother Moranis LaRue, it is with great pleasure that I, on behalf of the Convoy Cup Foundation, have the privilege and honoring of late Brother Moranis LaRue with the Convoy Cup Medallion, post-mortem, in recognition of his service to the U.S. Merchant Marine during World War II and the Korean War. Thanks to the bravery and sacrifice of Brother Moranis LaRue and his crew aboard the SS Meredith Victory, 14,000 Korean refugees were rescued from the port of Hungnam December 23, 1950. We will never forget. Kind regards, Convoy Cup Foundation, signed by the chairman, Steiner Ingeset.
Father Kim?
One more little detail that goes along with the Convoy Cup medallion is a certificate of appreciation. This is to certify that the medallion of the Convoy Cup Foundation has been awarded to Captain Leonard LaRue post-mortem in recognition and appreciation of his service during World War II and the Korean War. And in final, I'd like to make reference to World War II and some of the times that he spent with the vessels. There were 23 vessels, I believe, he served on, 7 of which were in hostile actions and some sinking as well. The United Seaman Service put together to Walt Disney back in 1944 a Walt Disney service patch for members serving in World War II. It's a small token, but it means a lot of significance to the iconic era of World War II veterans. And what you see here is Pete, Battling Pete hitting a humanized torpedo. And we received some authorizations from Disney recently that allowed us to share in these tokens of appreciation. I'd like to present that to you as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Father Kim? So for both of you who are joining us online and those of you who are here, I wish to thank you for being part of this program today.